Now, so-called party drugs can actually kill people, and that's why they are banned. Pretty simple. But strange times in New South Wales. Deputy State Coroner Harriet Graham has looked into the overdose deaths of at least 6 people at music festivals in just a year, and her draft findings have been leaked. Now, in them, Graham calls for the state government to allow pill testing at music festivals, to scrap the use of sniffer dogs and overhaul strip searches. She also wants the government to consider decriminalising the personal use of illicit drugs. Joining me earlier was Sky News reporter Caroline Marcus. Caroline Marcus, thank you so much indeed for your time. What has New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian said to pill testing?
Well, Gladys Berejiklian promised before the state election at the beginning of the year that she would not be introducing pill testing in New South Wales, despite there being quite a bit of pressure on her to do so from drug liberalisers. Today, she wouldn't back down on that stance, despite the recommendation from the Deputy State Coroner that pill testing be introduced at music festivals. She said it was a dangerous path to go down. This is what she had to say.
We don't support it. We don't think it's the right path to go down. But will we look at other recommendations? Is there more we can do about education and safety messages? Of course, we'll consider those. That's important.
The Deputy Coroner also said, how about banning sniffer dogs and decriminalising drug taking possibly? What's been the Premier's response to those fairly bold steps?
Well, in terms of decriminalising personal drug use, the Premier was just as strong as she is against pill testing. She said she doesn't believe in decriminalising drug use, saying that sends the absolutely wrong signal to young people. But she was more open to being convinced about different law and order approaches. She said she was happy to speak to police about some of their approaches. Obviously, sniffer dogs have a huge presence at music festivals, and interestingly, the Deputy State Coroner linked the use of sniffer dogs to the consumption of drugs, which was some of the evidence that she heard during this inquest into the deaths of 6 young people over that 2017-2019 summer period. But in terms of the strip searches, the coroner has recommended not that they be got rid of completely, but that police have a limited capacity to be able to carry out strip searches on young people. The Deputy State Coroner had been to a couple of music festivals as a part of her research, you can say, and she said that she found the police presence at these events to be intimidating, which is an interesting remark considering that you'd think that a high police presence at events where deaths have been all too common would be reassuring for many people.
I'm getting strange political signals here. I have to tell you, as a parent, if any child of mine went to one of those festivals, not that they'd take drugs, I know that, but you know, I would have thought a lot of parents would feel a sense of security that the police were there, not that they were intimidating at all. It's interesting that she takes a hostile look at that. Labor, what's been its reaction?
Well, interestingly, the New South Wales Labor leader, Jodie McKay, came out today and revealed that she would be open to a pill testing trial that was medically supervised. She said that we should be listening to the coroner on that recommendation. Interestingly, she didn't think that she wasn't too keen on some of the other recommendations like decriminalising personal drug use or getting rid of sniffer dogs and strip searches, but this is what she had to say.
I'm not saying we introduce pill testing, I'm saying we trial it. That is all I am asking for if this is what the coroner recommends. Now, I can't understand how the Premier can say, I'm going to look at an evidence-based approach and then just rule it out. I can't understand that.
Caroline, it's interesting. You've got there now the 2 main leaders of Liberal and Labor against these proposals. They're clearly not politically popular. They are radical. Any idea why this draft report might have been leaked, for instance? Was it because it was too radical, or was someone trying to get the media on side to bulldoze the premiers? How did that all play out?
Well, it's interesting because these findings weren't meant to be released by the coroner until November 8. So they've come out early. There was a draft report that had been leaked to the Daily Telegraph newspaper yesterday on this issue. And I think that because the recommendations had only gone to the New South Wales Health Department and then had been provided to New South Wales Police, and given the comments that we've seen come out of the police union today and some police sources absolutely slamming these recommendations, saying they basically legalise illicit drug use and giving a go-ahead to young people to take drugs, I think it's safe to say that there were a lot of people, particularly within New South Wales Police, that were very unhappy about these recommendations, and that is probably how the story got out in the first place.
And Caroline, it's an interesting thing here. Like, we have a coroner sitting in hearings, calling witnesses, etc., etc. It comes to a certain point of view. You have the politicians who probably are more in touch with the public, both sides rejecting the main thrust of these proposals, with some exception, it's difference on whether to have some testing regime, a trial regime. Why do you think the coroner was so far out ahead of the politicians on this one? Or Deputy Coroner?
Look, far be it for me to try and understand some of the legal minds in this country, but I have to say that having sat through some of this inquest in the New South Wales Coroner's Court, I was surprised by the number of witnesses that were advocates, openly advocating pill testing and other drug liberalisation strategies. There were some very high-profile people who are known for their stance on these issues who were invited to give evidence to the inquest. So not only did the Deputy State Coroner hear from some of those people, and they gave that argument a lot of weight during the inquest, but she also faced pressure from the families of the 6 young deceased people who you can understand are absolutely desperate for anything, any answers, any change to take place so other young people don't lose their lives in such a meaningless fashion. Of course, not all families of victims feel the same way. Not all of them are pro-pill testing. Anna Wood's father, she of course died from an ecstasy use back in the 1990s. He's been very staunchly against the idea of pill testing, given his daughter had taken what would have been seen as a pure dose of MDMA and just 1 tablet. But you can understand that some families are desperate. So I can only imagine that the coroner perhaps heard that evidence from pill testing advocates, heard some of the victim impact statements from the families, and then based some of her recommendations on that.
Well, it also, I think, illustrates once again how processes like this tend to lean left, in that the activists get motivated and Conservatives tend not to. They get upset after it's a bit too late. Caroline Marcus, thank you so much indeed for your time.